Right, so I want to make a video updating everyone, getting right into it. Alberta, 20 new cases yesterday. Canada, 98,804 confirmed, 8,147 dead. Alberta is looking a little bit better. There's good news and there's bad news. The good news being 20 new cases and down to 31 in the hospital. The bad news, we're up to 440 active cases, but I think in a lot of ways, or not in a lot of ways, in some ways it's actually a good thing in that the hospitalization numbers continue to go down, which I think shows that, again, I think it just proves my theory more right, in that the majority of, or the vast majority of new cases that they're discovering are people that were asymptomatic or otherwise wouldn't have gotten a test up until like a week ago or ish. So, and we have a lot of people who are up in arms with, oh, we're having the second wave. Here's the second wave, guys. This is going to be doomsday. Like, and again, it's just laughable how stupid some people can be, and that there's no evidence, at least at this point, that we're in for some massive second wave. Most of the, in fact, I would argue pretty well all of the increase in cases. I mean, yesterday we only had 20 new cases, so that's not an increase. Is due to the fact that we're testing more people, and we're testing people that we couldn't even test before, even if they wanted to. So that is the main reason. And the numbers bear out that we're not in for some massive second wave because the hospitalization numbers are going down. We had over 10 less people in the hospital yesterday. Now again, these numbers seem to kind of bounce around a little weird, so I don't know how accurate they are or how they're tracking them, but I mean you can only assume that they're accurate. I mean, they're government numbers. So um, but again, we're down to 31 people in the hospital. I mean, Ontario has over 100 people in the ICU, and most of Ontario is in stage 2. So why in the world do we have people who are still reluctant to open things up when we have Ontario with, more than 3 times the amount of people in the ICU that we even have in the hospital? Like, of all the people that have it right now, we might get a few deaths from it. All, like, again, we're keeping things locked down to save maybe 3 or 4 people, like, if that. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. And again, we're losing people by keeping things locked down too. Like, it's something I mentioned before, but it's something that I really cannot stand, that the pro lockdown crowd just conveniently ignores that people are committing suicide because of the lockdowns. People are becoming severely depressed because of the lockdowns. Kids are being abused, spouses are being abused, and I hate to use the women are being abused, because women abuse men at almost the same rate as vice versa. So um, yeah, like, there is going to be a lot of negative ramifications from this, and the problem is that those numbers aren't measurable. So people are going to pretend that they don't exist. I mean, suicides are measurable, but suicides because of the lockdown, I mean, it's tough because generally people commit suicide because they've been depressed for a while. It means sometimes, but it's generally not one big event. I mean, my guess is that most of these people, the lockdowns was just the final straw. They just can't take it anymore, kind of thing. And especially now that people are finding out that it was all a fraud, that people, were forced to shut down their business, and a lot of people lose a lot of money. I mean, you may even not even be able to open your business back up because you can't afford to not be making any money and still be paying all your bills. I mean, a lot of people cannot afford that. So that is probably the final straw for a lot of people. And the worst thing, I mean, to cap it all off, we now have found out beyond a shadow of a doubt that we never even should have locked down in the first place, let alone still be locked down. 95% of the deaths are from people, that are seniors, which means if we would have just closed down the borders, shut down nursing homes, suggest people that are over the age of 60 and or have health conditions to stay home, I think that we would have had no more deaths, no more cases, and we could have kept our economy going at about 95% of what it's going, not shut down half of it like we did. So that's the big problem, and kind of the takeaway. And the other thing too, I've been pointing out lately, just as kind of a second piece of evidence to back up my claim, is that the numbers in the states have not gone up. They've been very consistent over the last 2 weeks, thus proving, I believe, and I think it's very obvious to anyone with a shred of critical thinking skills, that There is no connection between the lockdowns and a reduction in cases, and there is no connection between opening things up and an increase in cases. There will be an increase in asymptomatic cases, but that doesn't matter because asymptomatic people are very unlikely to spread it, and they're people that are not going to die or even get sick in the first place. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to keep people locked down that have no reason to be locked down in the first place. It makes no sense whatsoever. Um, so getting to the big news from yesterday. This is stuff that's out of the States, but one of the main people involved is a Canadian, actually from right just outside of Edmonton. So the running back for Oklahoma State, Chuba Hubbard, was all up in arms about. I mean, a lot of people are. So it was him who kind of headed up the whole thing. But the coach of the football team wore a OANN shirt, the One American News, which is a right-leaning news outlet. And I mean, they're not super out there, at least from what I've seen. And even if they are, it really doesn't matter. And the whole problem with this is that, I mean, Graham Allen here puts it good. Colin Kaepernick wears a Fidel Castro shirt for an interview. Nobody cares. Gundy wears an OANN shirt, and the world loses its mind. And a running back I've never heard of threatens to quit. We're weakest generation ever. And again, this is the problem, that we're not going to fix this problem if people can't even have political opinions that disagree with you. You're not going to fix it. And this is the problem that these people don't understand, is that you're losing support so fast, so fast. Like, I've lost all respect for these people, and I know many other people who've lost all respect for them. If you want to address racism, fine. But again, and hardly anybody disagrees with that. Where the problem comes up, is vilifying anybody who disagrees with you politically as being one and of a KKK member, pretending that racism is the only issue too, because anybody with half a brain knows, number one, there's no evidence that shows that racism disproportionately affects blacks, at least at the hands of police. There's no evidence of that. If anything, the evidence points the opposite direction. There's no evidence that the justice system disproportionately targets blacks. If anything, it's the opposite. And the problem too is that all of these people are completely silent when it comes to single parenthood and the welfare state. If you care about the pain and suffering of the black community, and that is not the first thing you bring up, you've lost all credibility. And this is the other thing too, is that I believe the running back, because I know some people who know him. I'm pretty sure he grew up in a single parent household. I'm pretty sure his dad left him when he was very young. Um, and yet still, I mean, you think you'd be a perfect case. I mean, I don't know. I mean, for all I know, his mom did a very good job of raising him. But you think that you'd be the perfect case to bring that kind of stuff up, that, hey, I grew up in this situation. Look how I turned out. I mean, pro athlete. I mean, going to be a pro athlete. So, I mean, you can do it too. But no, they choose this stupid, racism. Does racism exist to some degree? Yeah, but if we magically end the very small amount of racism that exists, is it going to fix the pain and suffering of the black community? Not even close. It is literally a blip on the radar. The welfare state and the ramifications of the welfare state is 90 plus percent the cause of the pain and suffering of the black community. Racism, very small percentage. Does it cause some pain and suffering? Yeah, but there's no evidence that disproportionately does it. And the numbers clearly bear that out too. There's no debate there. The numbers clearly bear that out. Clearly. And the fact too that these people, again, they don't have a problem with Kaepernick praising dictators that killed people. They don't have a problem with that. But yet they have a problem with a coach who supports a run-of-the-mill right-wing news outlet. Like, come on, like, come on. Now, they did kind of make up, and I really appreciate Gundy up to this point not apologizing for what he did. That really makes me respect the guy. But I would hope, I mean, there may be pressure from the mob to do it. But again, I mean, he has FU money. I mean, I think the guy's salary is $3-4 million a year. He's been making that for probably over a decade now. So again, he has FU money. He doesn't need them. And that's the problem too, is I really hope the guy stands up for his beliefs. So Yeah, that is the big story out of the day. And again, it's just a stupid cancel culture BS, like over and over again, like over and over again. And this is the problem, that the reason why I'm so, one of the main reasons why I'm so up in arms about this kind of stuff is that the people, the Black Lives Matter people, the Hubbards, these kind of people, that they're trying to solve a problem that they refuse to let people discuss what is causing the problem. If it's not racism and be 100% on board, you have to agree with me 100%, or you're a Nazi, you're KKK, then you're not going to get anywhere. And this is the problem with most of these people, is that you can't disagree with them in the slightest. You can't make any suggestions that don't perfectly adhere to them in the slightest, or they will vilify you, they'll rake you over the coals. And this is the big problem with politics and all this kind of stuff nowadays, is that if these people want to actually gain credibility and actually have people agree with them, then this cancel culture BS is only hurting your cause. And I know, I mean, probably no one who agrees with them is watching this, but I mean, you probably know people, like I always mention. And the other thing too to point out is that, when George Floyd was killed, pretty much everybody, in fact, I don't know if I hardly seen anyone who didn't think it was the worst thing ever. Like, even like people like Rush Limbaugh were talking about it. People that are hardline right wingers. And they had everybody behind their cause. They had everybody behind their cause. What did they do? They went out and rioted, justified the rioting. They killed well into the double digits amount of largely black people. They justified that, saying it was a good thing, and they lost pretty much anybody with half a brain. Anybody with half a brain they've lost, because if you think that there's no difference between peaceful protesting and rioting, if you think that you're going to be able to say, oh, Black Lives Matter, but completely ignore all the black lives that have been killed and destroyed because of this, no, you've lost all credibility. So again, these people, again, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're terribly organized, and I refuse to even come close to agreeing with them or have any sympathy for them whatsoever, because they literally will vilify you and rake you over the coals if you point out the obvious causes of their problems. And if you don't completely adhere to them, they'll kill you. They'll kill you. And not, I mean, sometimes literally, but usually figuratively. So I seen this from Luke Rudowski on Twitter, and he pointed out a very good point here, in that he says, as they divide us between black and white, they're literally robbing all of us blind. Again, this guy Warren Gannells puts out. I'm not sure if this is accurate. I mean, I assume it's accurate, at least to some degree, in that he posts the 3 month gain in wealth. Now, again, this isn't liquid assets. When you hear people, oh, they're worth $10 billion, they don't actually have that much money in liquid assets. I mean, the average billionaire probably doesn't even have anything more than, seven figures in a bank account, maybe eight. But nobody has hundreds of millions of dollars, let alone billions of dollars, in a bank account. Nobody has that. And this is the problem that with these lefties, is that they actually think that Jeff Bezos is worth 100 or 150 billion dollars, therefore he has 150 billion dollars in a bank account. No, he doesn't. Jeff Bezos' salary is like $1 or $2 million a year. Almost all of these people's wealth is in real estate, stock, and or ownership of a company. That's pretty much all of these people's wealth, what it's from. So anyway, Bezos up 51 billion, Zuckerberg 34.3, Buffett 29.7, the Waltons 26.3, Gates 25.5, so on and so forth. You can read the rest. But obviously, yeah, Amazon stock has been through the roof. They're probably have an all-time high in business. So obviously, Bezos is going to be way up. I mean, everyone's staying at home, sharing stuff on Facebook. So, obviously Zuckerberg, they're going to go up. Buffett is just very smart in the way he invests. So, I mean, he's obviously going to be making money. The Waltons, again, Walmart, again, the, mom and pop grocery stores and department stores and whatever kind of stores can't stay open, but Walmart can stay open. They're raking in the money. Bill Gates making money off the vaccines. So again, the point here being is that one of the main political ideologies and things that the left is worried about, and they complain about, and they're right to some degree, is corporate greed and greed and billionaire greed and all this kind of stuff. But yet, where are they on this one? Where are they on this one? And the reason why they don't care is that, um, or at least they may pretend to care, but they don't care because they're the ones that's largely, I mean, it's largely the crazy left-wing Karens and social justice warriors of the world that are defending the lockdown and supporting the lockdowns, thus making Amazon and Walmart and Facebook and all these big corporations tons of money. Again, if you hate the big corporations, you shouldn't be supporting the lockdown. You should not be supporting the lockdowns if you hate big corporations. And this is why I just literally just brush over. And whenever you hear a leftist complain about greedy corporations and all that garbage, you can literally just dismiss it outright, because if they weren't pointing this kind of stuff out now, then they don't actually care. They only care because they want to implement socialism, and the only way you can make socialism work is to have individuals, individuals and corporations pay massive amounts of taxes to prop up the massive amount of people under socialism that literally put nothing into the system but get massive amounts out of the system. So that's why they hate corporations. So I mean, in a nutshell, I mean, there's obviously more to it. This is from Zuby Music, and he says, unpopular opinion. I don't think it's actually that unpopular. But anyway, calling people who are not racist will not end racism. And again, this goes back to the whole thing with the story with Oklahoma State and Hubbard and Mike Gundy and all these people, and that the problem with racism nowadays is that largely people on the left, I mean, it's almost exclusively people on the left, have been calling people racist for, it seems like, a generation or at least now, who are not actually racist. And the problem is that it's only getting worse, and that 10 years ago it was actually kind of rare. Now it's any politician who's on the right is a racist. It don't matter if you're even black or Hispanic, you're still a racist. I mean, you look at the left, like Candace Owens, white supremacist. She's black. Okay, how can you be a white supremacist if you're not even white and you're black? Like, again, there's no credibility to these people, and this is the problem, that there is a very large percent of the population, me being one of them, at least to some degree, who, whenever the term racism is thrown out, they completely tune it out. They completely ignore everything that's being said, because they know, and anybody with half a brain knows, that whenever racism is thrown out, it is largely just thrown out to be a political move. And that, it's the classic thing that, the left calls people racist who they can't, defeat their arguments. And it's the same thing with this kind of stuff, is that if you actually want to defeat racism, you have to stop calling people racist who aren't racist. But what would that mean? Well, what would that mean is 95% of the people that are called racist would stop being called racist, and then people would discover, hey, racism's actually incredibly rare, like incredibly rare. Like, I don't think I hardly even ever met a person who's racist. But now, anybody who's not on the left is a racist. So you have all these people largely on the left who think everyone's a racist. There's so many racists out there. Well, no, there really isn't. It's just because you guys call everyone racist who disagrees with you politically. So anyway, and the last thing I wanted to talk about today is from Dennis Moeller on Twitter, and he says 171 people dead in BC this month of overdose. I guess it's not that important. It's not BLM. Now, again, I don't know what the exact number is who died in the average month, but I know it isn't nearly that high. I think it was one of the record high months, at least maybe all time for BC. Now, again, why don't these people's lives matter? And again, this is the thing that I've been pointing out ad nauseum, that the selective outrage and the selective anger of these people, and that they only care about it when it fits their political ideology, not what actually makes sense. Like, what actually makes sense is that we care about people relatively equally. And I mean relatively equally because I don't think the life of someone who's 80 or 90 years old is worth the same as the life of someone who's 20. And not that I say, oh, we should be killed. No, I'm just saying that someone who's that old, you don't have much of if any of your life left to live. Someone who's that young has 70 years in front of them. So again, it's not fair that we equate them in one of the same. And I really can't stand the people that Jason Kenney pointed out that basic fact, and the left is all over him. Oh, that must mean he wants old people to die. He wants grandma to. No, he's just pointing out a basic fact. A basic fact. And that's the problem with stuff nowadays. But anyway, like why are these people not important? Like I point this kind of stuff out all the time, but why is it the selective out? And again, the reason why the left will care about saving lives when it fits their political agenda, right? Like they're all up in arms about, oh, saving lives because banning assault rifles, even though the guns on the list killed 20 people in Canadian history. Like 20 people in Canadian history. And yet, oh well, we're gonna save lives. No, you're not gonna save lives. You know how many crazy things kill more people than those things do. It's the other stat I heard that's a little off topic, but related, is that um, more blacks die from falling out of bed or getting out of bed a year than die that are unarmed from police officers. Like again, I'll repeat that. More blacks die a year because of getting out of bed, slipping and falling and hitting their head probably, then die from at the hands of police officers while being unarmed. Like again, like these things are so crazy nowadays, and it's so insane. And again, I try to be the voice of reason at least to some degree, but it seems like a lot of times it's not doing a whole lot. But I'm going to keep doing things. Anyway, I'm gonna leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got links in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, check me out on Twitter if you haven't already, and check me out on BitChute. All the links are in the description, so you can find them all there.